Think about the last thing you threw into a recycling bin. A plastic bottle, a cardboard box, maybe a soda can. Now, be honest. At that moment, you probably felt like you did something good. Like, in a small way, you helped the environment. That feeling is powerful. And it's exactly why recycling has become one of the most trusted environmental habits in the world. But here's the question most people never ask. What actually happens after you throw something into that bin? Does it really get recycled? Or is that just what we hope is happening? Let's start with the ideal version of recycling. In theory, recycling is simple. You collect used materials, process them, and turn them into new products. That reduces waste, saves energy, and cuts down the need for raw resources. It sounds like a perfect loop. And for some materials, it actually works very well. Take aluminum. Aluminum is one of the best examples of a successful recycling system. It can be recycled almost infinitely without losing quality, and the energy savings are massive, around 95% compared to producing new aluminum. That means every recycled can genuinely makes a difference. Glass is another strong case. It can be melted down and reused over and over again with minimal loss. In systems where glass is properly sorted, recycling is efficient and reliable. Paper also works, but not perfectly. Each time paper is recycled, the fibers get shorter and weaker. After about 5 to 7 cycles, it can no longer be reused. Still, it reduces the need for cutting down trees, which is important. So far, recycling sounds like a success story. But this is where the reality starts to shift. Because not all materials behave the same. And the biggest problem is plastic. Plastic is often presented as recyclable, but in practice, it's the weakest part of the entire system. Here's why. Plastic isn't just one thing. There are many different types, PET, HDPE, and more. Each type has a different chemical structure, and most of them cannot be mixed together. So for recycling to work, plastic must be sorted perfectly. Now imagine millions of tons of waste moving through conveyor belts, mixed with food, liquids, labels, and dirt. Perfect sorting becomes nearly impossible. And even when plastic is sorted correctly, there's another issue. It degrades. Every time plastic is recycled, its quality decreases. This process is called downcycle. Instead of becoming a new bottle, it might become a carpet, a textile fiber, or a low-grade material. And after that, it usually can't be recycled again. So plastic recycling often doesn't create a loop. It creates a short delay before the material becomes waste anyway. Now, here's something even more surprising. A large percentage of recyclable waste is never actually recycled, even if you do everything right. Globally, only a small fraction of plastic waste is recycled. The majority ends up in landfills, is burned, or leaks into the environment. Why does this happen? One major reason is contamination. If recyclable materials are mixed with food waste, liquids, or non-recyclable items, entire batches can be rejected. One dirty container can affect dozens of clean ones. And once contamination reaches a certain level, it's often cheaper to throw everything away than to try to fix it. Another major factor is economics. Recycling isn't just about environmental benefit, it's a business. If recycling a material costs more than producing a new one, companies will choose the cheaper option. And this is where oil prices come into play. Plastic is made from fossil fuels. When oil prices are low, new plastic becomes extremely cheap to produce, which means recycled plastic becomes less valuable. And when that happens, demand for recycled materials drops. So even if recycling is technically possible, it may not happen because it's not profitable. This leads to a strange situation. You recycle something, it gets collected, it gets sorted, and then it might still end up in a landfill. Not because you did anything wrong, but because the system doesn't need it. There's also a global layer to this problem. For years, many countries relied on exporting recyclable waste to other nations. Instead of processing it locally, they shipped it overseas, out of sight, out of mind. But when those countries began restricting imports, the system started to break. Recycling facilities became overwhelmed, and suddenly large amounts of recyclable waste had nowhere to go. Some of it was stored, some of it was burned, and some of it went straight to landfills. This revealed something important. Recycling systems were not as stable as people thought. They were dependent on global trade and external processing. So now we come back to the main question. Is recycling actually effective? The honest answer is, it depends. For materials like aluminum and glass, recycling is highly effective. For paper, it's moderately effective. For plastic, it's often inefficient and limited. But there's an even bigger issue. Even if recycling worked perfectly, it still wouldn't solve the problem. Because the real problem isn't waste, it's how much we produce in the first place. Every day, billions of items are created for single use, packaging that lasts minutes but exists for decades. Recycling tries to deal with that, but it doesn't reduce it, it reacts after the fact. That's why experts use something called the waste hierarchy. 3 steps: reduce, reuse, recycle, in that order. But in reality, most people focus almost entirely on recycling because it's easy. You don't have to change what you buy, you just sort it differently at the end. But reducing consumption has a much bigger impact. If something is never produced, it never becomes waste. Reusing is also powerful. A reusable bottle can replace hundreds of plastic ones. A reusable bag can replace thousands of single-use bags. These actions prevent waste before it exists, which is far more effective than trying to manage it later. So where does that leave recycling? It's still important, it still reduces waste, it still saves energy, but it's not the solution people think it is. It's one piece of a much larger system. To make recycling more effective, several things need to change. First, product design. Many products today are not designed to be recycled. They use mixed materials, complex packaging, and unnecessary plastic layers. If products were designed with recycling in mind, the system would work much better. Second, responsibility. Right now, most of the burden is placed on consumers. You're expected to sort, clean, and dispose correctly, but companies control how products are made. Shifting responsibility toward producers can create stronger incentives for better design. Third, infrastructure. Recycling systems vary widely depending on location. Some places have advanced facilities, others lack basic sorting capabilities. Improving infrastructure can significantly increase recycling rates. And finally, behavior. This is the hardest part because it requires changing habits, buying less, choosing reusable options, thinking about waste before it exists. So next time you throw something into a recycling bin, you're not wrong to do it. It still matters. But now you understand something deeper. Recycling is not a complete solution. It's a partial one, a tool, not a fix. The real change happens earlier, before the product is made, before it's bought, before it becomes waste. Because the most effective way to deal with waste is to stop creating so much of it in the first place.